pay-per-view. To order the main card, go to ESPN.com/PPV. Pay-per-view, ESPN and ESPN Deportes, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. Also tonight, following Game 4 of the NBA Finals, right on ABC, it's SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt on ESPN. He'll have complete post-game coverage with team reports, plus Doris Burke and yours truly with our biggest takeaways. SportsCenter with SVP after Raptors Warriors Game 4 on ESPN and the ESPN app. Nick Nurse, head coach for the Toronto Raptors, took just a few minutes ago to talk to the folks about the Warriors' ever-changing lineups. Listen up.
You know, we'll have to make adjustments on the fly, but you do that every game, right? When the ball goes up, things start happening, and you start changing matchups and changing who's guarding who and what coverages you're in, depending on how the game's flowing. Again, we need to put in a great effort here ourselves. You know, we know which our guys are going to be out there, and those guys that hit the floor need to put in a great effort. And if they do that, then they'll put themselves in a, give ourselves a chance to win.
Nick Nurse has been incredibly impressive, not just throughout these finals, but throughout these playoffs. Has done an outstanding job succeeding the great Dwayne Casey as head coach of the Toronto Raptors. With me right now is my brother, the one and only Michael Wilbon, PTI fame, and everything ESPN as far as I'm concerned. Mike, Game 4 tonight. Must win for the Golden State Warriors in your mind?
Stephen, not as must win is strictly defined. People have gotten too loose with must win. Must win means you got to win or you're done.
Right.
And I can see a scenario where they could go down 3-1 and win. We saw them beat Oklahoma City team with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook a few years ago when they were down 3-1, Clay and Steph and Draymond. So I can see that, but I think they need to win. I think the winner of tonight is in control. At 2-2, I can see the Warriors moving sort of back into control of the series, even though Toronto has an advantage. But that's going to depend on Klay Thompson. I don't know what to expect tonight. You know how we always go into a game, our take may be wrong, but we've got one.
We see Steph running down the hallway. He's running out right now. Get ready to warm up on the basketball court behind us, Mike.
I don't know what to expect because it's going to depend on what I see from Klay Thompson. How's he going to move? I know people I talked to last night, former players in this league who've been in the finals, who say, I don't know that he can cut and do the things that Klay Thompson needs his legs to do to get those shots and defend, because we're talking about a two-way player.
But what did those players tell you about what the Toronto Raptors should do to expose Klay Thompson's hamstring injury?
Attack defensively. Attack, and particularly, do they have enough to attack both Steph and Klay? Yeah. I mean, they did it in Game 1. Granted, they were coming off a 9-day layover or whatever it was, Stephen. But they're so good defensively, and that's the thing we tend to let go with Toronto. We saw that in the Milwaukee series. We've been reminded about it in this series, early in the series. So, Klay Thompson, to me, is the key to everything tonight for the Warriors.
When you look at the Golden State Warriors right now, I mean, it's hard to gauge what we should expect from them. But what is it that you think they need to do specifically in order to win this game?
We just heard Steve Kerr say it. He just talked to us about a half an hour ago. And Steve Kerr went right to it. He said we were bad defensively in Game 3. So you know where all their adjustments and their effort and their intensity is going early in this game. They think 109 points ought to be enough to win, and it certainly should be enough to not lose a game by 14 at home.
That's right.
So defense, going back to that for Steve Kerr.
We saw Kevon Looney out here warming up. Evidently, he took a shot, according to Brian Windhorst, so he would be able to play tonight. What are your expectations of what he'll be able to give you and how much he'll help them defensively?
Well, minutes, effort, time. Some people have to get some rest. Look, we've seen Looney have an impact on a game in short stretches. I mean, he's not going to dominate a game defensively like Draymond Green can or like Kawhi Leonard can. That's not his thing. But if he can give them conservatively, I don't know, 10 to 12 minutes, it's an all-hands-on-deck situation. Especially for people talking about this is a must-win situation, must-win game for the Warriors. Okay, then they need Looney to be part of the ensemble, and I'm going to quote Bill Belichick, do his job.
Right.
And his job tonight, if we're to believe what Steve Kerr said pregame, starts defensively.
Are you anticipating a Willis Reed kind of moment involving Kevin Kevin Durant practice walkthrough was close for LeBron. I had to start off Sports Center outside with music, loudness, and all of that stuff because they closed off practice, a walkthrough rather, before the game.
I would be as suspicious as you are normally. But again, asked specifically about Kevin Durant, again, less than a half an hour ago, Steve Kerr said no. No, not, I don't think so, not to the best of my ability, I'm not sure. He said no. I always take Steve Kerr at his word.
The manner in which he said no, and as emphatically as he stated it, okay, he's not going to be ready for Game 4. But does that mean Game 5 is doubtful, Game 6 is doubtful because of the emphasis that he placed on that word? Well, I'm asking that because it's Steve Kerr we're talking about here.
I know. And look, you know, I never expected to see Kevin Durant. It was insane to think he was going to play against Portland. That was just dumb. I don't know what people are really thinking about with an injury like a calf strain. You're on your feet. You're using your legs. We're talking about cutting and defending and jumping. How did he couldn't do it. I didn't expect to see him. I don't expect to see him in this series. I hope he can play, Steven. But the reality of it is, people started this stuff with Game 1. We're all the way to game. We're beyond Game 4 because they've already said he's not going to play tonight.
Are we at a point where we have to look at the Golden State Warriors and say, without the services of Kevin Durant, you literally need everyone else to beat the Toronto Raptors? You can't afford to lose Clay. You can't afford to lose Boogie. You can't afford to lose Iggy. Are we at that point?
Yes, and not just to have them, but to have them produce. To whatever, beyond average place they can produce. That's why I said with Looney, what are they expecting out of him tonight? Some minutes, some rebounds, some defense, an active body, all the things that he brings normally. Expect more to Boogie Cousins on both ends and offensively. It can't be, a 4.2 rebound. That's not going to cut it. So they need them not just to be out there, but to perform at a relatively efficient level. And they need their 3 big stars tonight to be big stars.
Wilbon, you and I covered the Eastern Conference Finals between the Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks. We saw the Raptors win the series. We saw them win a must Game 5 in Milwaukee to avoid that Game 7 going back to Milwaukee. We never saw them shoot the way they shot in Game 3. What are your expectations from them as a scoring offense in tonight's game?
Well, they're going to have less space in which to get off those shots. That's a function of that defense that the Warriors are saying they did not play in Game 3. They're going to attempt to do that tonight. And we're not talking about some just average group. If these guys say we're going to buckle down and we're going to close these spaces that Toronto had, I believe that will happen by and large. 51% shooting from Toronto tonight, I don't expect to see that. I'm not saying they can't win this game. They may very well, but I think it's going to be more of a dogfight and not leading by 12 to 14 over a great percentage of the game as they did in 3.
Real quickly, your X factor for the Golden State Warriors tonight, who was that?
That means it can't be one of the first 4 guys, can it?
It could be.
Is Andre Iguodala too high up the food chain for me to say Andre Iguodala?
Not for me. You don't want me.
Then I'm going with Andre Iguodala.
Who's your X factor for the Toronto Raptors?
That means I can't do starters.
Yes, you can.
You know what? It's hard to go against Fred VanVleet, given what he has done since the birth of his child.
That's right.
He's been like lights out VanVleet. And he seems to be quite at home in here, even though he's on the road. I'll go with Fred VanVleet one more time. He's been an X factor so much he ought to be disqualified from our conversation. But I'm going to go with Fred.
Real quickly, going off the court for a second, did you agree with Commissioner Silver and the NBA's decision to Mark Stevens, the minority owner, fining him $500,000, suspending him for a year? Did you agree with that real quickly?
I mean, I thought it should have been 2 years.
So did I.
But I think more importantly, I think there's a move. There's going to be a move afoot for the other investors, owners, whatever you want to call them, with the Warriors, to force him to sell. I think there can be a much greater punishment that is not legislated. But sometimes the consequence for your actions aren't legislation. Your peers, and those are his peers, can say, you know what? In this environment, in Northern California, specifically San Francisco, where this team is going to call home again next year, we're not having that. And I've heard that from quite a few people here in the Bay Area.
My only aversion to that kind of thinking, Wilbon, is that I don't want him nor anyone else lumped into the same bowl as a Donald Sterling. What he had to say when he was banned from the league for life by Commissioner Adam Silver, I think when the things that he said, how egregious they were, as reprehensible as Mark Stevens' actions were, I still don't compare it to that.
No,
and I know you're not either.
I don't compare it to that, but what's going to be interesting is whether or not he's forced to have other consequences.
Got it. Wilbon, appreciate you, buddy. As always. By the way, that's all the time we have for tonight. Catch me after Sports Center tonight for the Game 4 breakdown. Plus, I'll be back here at 7 p.m. on ESPN Game 5 as well, so don't miss that. Monday from Toronto, that is. That means I got to go across the border. I got to do customs again, Mike.
You got global entry yet?
I got global entry, but that doesn't help that currency coming back. I'm going in. Just when I thought I was having a good time, I was going to close the door, close the show with a smile. The jump is up next.